Hello and welcome to the Stew with JT Brew on Fantasy in Frames. We are talking free agent madness here in the NFL. Things got going today in the early period. The league year starts on Wednesday, but we're getting things, all kinds of rumors, everything going around. We got trades, we got signings. Stick with us. We're going to talk all about it, break down every team here over the next 45 minutes or so. Stick with us here on the Stew with JT Brew on Fantasy in Frames.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sipping brew, sifting through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the Stew with JT Brew.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm JT. Joining me tonight, John McGlynn from the Dynasty Evaluation, and Aiden, a new guy here at Fantasy in Frames. Thanks for joining us here to talk about the NFL free agency.
Of course, today has been a whirlwind, so I can't wait to talk about it. I love this time of the year. I do love the season, but my main thing is I love analyzing team building and team roster philosophies, so this is my bread and butter, if you will.
That's great. Hey, John, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on the show. We've been doing a Dynasty Evaluation, breaking down rookies and everything. Now we get to the free agency here before the NFL draft. Let's just jump right into it. Let's start off with the AFC East. We'll go through it team by team here, just kind of what we see and what fantasy impacts they have. Starting things off, Josh Allen, your boy, John, the big agreement, 6-year deal worth $330 million, $250 million guaranteed. He's going to be in Buffalo for a long time. You got to see that. Obviously, absolute stud for fantasy purposes. He's going to be there a long time. Also, re-signed Khalil Shakur, 4-year deal, $60 million there. So he's going to be in the mix as one of Josh Allen's main guy. But they got somebody new, a new guy in the mix today, Josh Palmer, coming over from the Chargers, 3-year, $36 million deal, $18 million deal, $18 million guaranteed, excuse me. John, we kind of looked at him and we thought, hey, man, he might be a sneaky fantasy play for the Chargers last year. Do we think the same sneaky fantasy play for the Bills?
Absolutely. He's a talented kid. He's got tons of stuff. He's still young. He's got tons of talent left in the tank, man. This is some reason he didn't quite fit where we thought he would in the Chargers offense last year. But the Bills need somebody. They need a playmaker. You know, they're desperate for playmakers on offense. So Josh Palmer, when I saw that come across, I'm like, yes, this might be his chance to break out for sure.
Aiden, what do you think about that? You're a Bills guy. What do you like so far with the Shakur signing and now bringing in Josh Palmer as well?
So first, I'll start with Khalil Shakur because you brought that up first. I will say right off the bat, it's like in the 2022 draft, I was really high on Shakur. I thought he could have gone the second or third round, so it blows my mind how he fell to the 5th round for the Bills. But on Palmer, I want to preface this with this. The Bills needed an outside receiver, you know, that true quote-unquote X receiver that could get vertical and stack man coverage, beat man coverage, and someone who could open up vertically down the field, separate vertically down the field. If you look at and get open easily down the field, and the Bills just didn't have it. If you look at all of Palmer's statistics from his NFL career last year, any year he's been in the league, he fits that to a T. He's top 10 in every separation metric you look at across the league. So I think they finally got that. Now he's not a superstar by any means, but I think they finally got that missing mold of receiver, if you will, that they were looking for.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see too, you know, with the Bills here, whether they go wide out again in the draft. Keon Coleman, obviously going in the second year, going to expect a lot more out of him year 2 as far as that's concerned. I mean, anytime you got Josh Allen, you got to feel good. Do you guys think draft-wise, Bills going wide receiver at some point, or do you think they want to go other spots filled first before they mess with that now with the Palmer, Shakur, and Keon Coleman as kind of their main 3 at wide receiver?
Do I want them to go wide receiver? Yes, but I think they have a lot of holes to fill in this team before they have to worry about wide receiver. I think they're doing okay at running back. They got a couple parts that kind of interchange together. They have a decent receiving core now. This offense needs one more big piece, I think, and I'm not sure what it is, but I don't know if it's going to come in free agency or in the draft. But when you're a pretty good team like the Bills, you make the playoffs. You don't have a top 5 pick, so there's a lot of good receivers in this class, but I'm not sure where they're going to be. What do you think, Aiden?
I agree. Predictively, I will say that now that they have Palmer, I think they have much defense. They'll go in the early rounds. I could see them making a modest receiver investment if someone, quote unquote, steal like the Shakir 4th, 5th, 6th round range. I could see a late day 2 / early day 3 pick. But in my opinion, they have to attack defense first and foremost. And top 3 needs are all defensive positions, in my opinion. So I think they'll make a modest investment at receiver in the draft, but it's not as pressing as it was before Palmer signed, before the Shakir extension, if that makes sense.
What if they can get a Jaden Higgins on this team? Wouldn't that be awesome?
See, that would have to be more than a moderate investment. You'll have to use 1 year, 2 second-round pick for that, but I would absolutely love that. I mean, he is a true vertical X receiver, and Palmer only signed a 3-year deal. I was looking at the numbers more contract-wise, digging in deeper, if you will, and they can get out of it after realistically the first year, so nothing's guaranteed after the first year if you really look at it. So I think Higgins is a very big receiver who can pluck any ball out of the air, and he has a very big catch radius and frame. Now that I will say, though, that is more than a modern investment, like I said just a few seconds ago. So you would have to pay up, if you will, and use 1 year, 2 second-round picks. But theoretically, picks aside, I would love that.
Miami Dolphins, not much for them. Zach Wilson, the signing today to be a backup to Tua, just a 1-year deal for him. So really, unless you're in a 2 QB or super deep league, not much to report there. Rasheem Mostert off the team. They've released him, but not much so far for the Dolphins. Patriots, on the other hand, signing Josh Dobbs to a backup deal, 2-year, $8 million. Also getting Mac Hollins coming over from the Bills, 2 years, $8.4 million for him. They also re-signed Austin Hooper at tight end. Nothing huge here for the Patriots. A few moves. John, I'm going to bring this up real fast, and we'll go quick. We won't talk about Joe Milton. Does this mean Joe Milton gets moved on? Do they put him on the practice squad? I saw a Steelers fan post like, do they make a move for Joe Milton? I was like, I'm in on get Joe Milton. Have him chuck it deep for the Steelers all year. And we'll get into a huge Steelers talk, so I'm going to get big into it right now. I want you to talk about, but get him, let him chuck it deep. And if it all falls apart, then you got a huge pick next year. What do you think happens to Joe Milton? Do they possibly move him? Hooftube,
if you follow him, he texted me earlier when I saw the Josh Dobbs move, and he said, "What about if they trade Joe Milton to the Colts to supplant Anthony Richardson? I know you love Anthony Richardson. He's underrated. For you, for everybody, he's underrated for the rest of the world. But you know it. You watch all the games. You see his talent. But if Joe Milton can go there and compete with Anthony Richardson, I think that'd be his best option. But the Steelers." That's cool. Right now, the Steelers have 2 deep threats on the team. That plays right into Joe Milton's hands. So there's a couple spots where he can go. But, I could talk for hours about this, but I'm so excited that the thought of Joe Milton getting a starting job somewhere is making me so happy.
I know. I just figured we'd bring it up real quick and talk about it. Josh Dobbs, obviously another one of those guys, backup role veteran for Drake May, if you got him. Again, another deep league super flex or 2 QB sleeper just to put on your team as a little backup. The big signing here, at least just stake in the heart for me today, Justin Fields goes to the New York Jets. I knew the Steelers were going to blow this. I was thinking about it all weekend, to be honest with you. I'm like, man, they haven't got a deal done yet with him. They're going to blow this thing and not keep Justin Fields. He's gone on a super reasonable 2-year, $40 million deal with $30 million guaranteed. Jets look like they're going to give him the shot with Tyrod Taylor backing him up. What do we think about the move here for Fields? I think it's an absolute terrible move by the Steelers not bringing Fields back, but he goes to New York. The Jets are going to give him a shot. What do we think about this?
Go ahead, Aiden.
Aiden, go ahead.
So first, can I talk about the Steelers and Jets? while we're
Yes, jump in both of them. I just tried to not talk about Steelers because I'll talk about them the whole freaking show, and I know we got to talk about other teams. So yes, go ahead and throw that in there.
So for the Steelers' perspective, I agree with you, JT. I don't understand how they didn't bring him back. Who's there going to be their quarterback right now? Sam Darnold. I'm sure we'll talk about the later team. We don't want to spoil it right now, but Sam Darnold left, so that's not on the radar target anymore. Russell Wilson looks like he's going to some QB need team like the Titans or Giants. I don't know how they don't bring back Justin Fields. You're going to settle for old man Aaron Rodgers? I don't understand. For the Jets, from a fantasy football perspective, I love this. Justin Fields reunites with his teammate from Ohio State, at least for a year or two, in Garrett Wilson. You'd assume the Jets have to add more weapons, whether that's bringing back Tyler Conklin at tight end, trading or cutting Alan Lazard, which I'm sure they will do. They got to get more serious about their weapons. But in terms of Justin Fields' fantasy equity as a real-life starting QB, I am very much in on him for fantasy in 2025 and beyond. And I don't know about you guys, but are you guys worried about Breece Hall? Because I don't think he'll have the same touchdown equity as he would in years past with a QB like Justin Fields because of the goal line carries for Justin Fields. So I'm worried about Breece Hall, but a bit. Garrett Wilson, no worries or qualms whatsoever. But Breece Hall, that's just my thinking. I'm a bit worried for fantasy-wise.
I'm not worried at all. It opens up the play action game for me. It's all that. It gives Justin Fields more time. The linebackers got to freeze and worry about some really good offensive, really good running backs in the backfield. I traded for Justin Fields in like 5 leagues this year. In the Fantasy and Frames League, I just traded Jorge, Gabe Davis, Tyler Scott, and Spencer Rattler for Justin Fields like probably 2 weeks ago. And I was like, yes, he's going to get a starting job somewhere. This is absolutely awesome. So,
yeah, I'm not as worried about Breece Hall because really Fields isn't like Hurts and where he takes like a bunch of like QB sneaks and stuff close to the line. Fields is usually scoring on like RPOs where he's breaking out running. So I still think inside the 5, you're going to see a lot of Breece Hall and things like that. So I'm not as worried about it. Jamie jumped in here, says I'm high on Breece Hall, less stacked boxes with Hall's efficiency. I agree. I think, it opens up things for Hall a little bit more with Justin Fields with his running ability and people having to worry about him. So I'm not as worried about Fields stealing the rushing touchdowns. I do think it opens things up a little bit. As you saw last year with Aaron Rodgers, the Jets needs a mobile quarterback. They need somebody that can move around. They've just got to. So
can I chime in here quick?
Yeah, jump right back in.
So you mentioned you both mentioned the stack boxes thing, freeze linebackers, open up play action game. I'm not saying this is a 1-to-1 parallel, if you will, but is it a little similar to the Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor argument last summer going into draft season where everyone was like, same idea. It's going to open up the play action game, this and that. Do you feel that? And then Anthony Richardson just bottomed out. Do you feel a same scenario with Justin Fields here, or is that different?
I mean, he's paired up with his college teammate. I mean, he's going to be right on track with Garrett Wilson. It's going to be, I feel like they're not going to miss a beat too much. This offense is set up for a running quarterback to, roll out to play action. I'm just excited about the situation that he's in. I'm not really sure all the other intangibles really are that scare me that much.
I agree with John. I think AR is a little bit situation. I think Fields is farther along than AR is. They both throw a good deep ball. I think while Fields is a really good runner, I think AR is a little more of the inside the goal line runner than Fields is,
he's
as
stronger,
far as because he's a big body guy that's gonna take a lot more keepers. I don't think they're gonna run as many straight keepers with Fields and things like that. So I'm not as worried about it. Jamie says Richardson can't pass. Fields reunited. It feels so good. I think Fields is underrated passer, man. People that watch the game
still
last
very
year,
high on him.
Yeah, the numbers weren't great, but man, he threw a ton of deep balls that were great that got long pass interference calls. I tell you what, man, I still am rooting. I don't like the Jets at all, but I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I hope he plays awesome there because I just feel like this guy has gotten the short end of the stick the whole time. I mean, the whole time he's been in the league, it kills me there. Guys, as we're talking about that, because we're going to move on here to the AFC North, let's jump. Nothing out of the ordinary, anything for the Ravens. They re-signed Ronnie Staley, O-line. Nothing as far as them concerned. Let's jump into the Steelers real quick. They signed Donald Parham to a 1-year contract. The big move obviously we were just talking about it. No Justin Fields. DK Metcalf acquired in a trade with the Seattle Seahawks. They exchanged a second-round pick and a 6-7 swap. Immediately, Metcalf gets signed to a 4-year, $132 million extension. Trade will be official when they launch the new year on Monday. I like the move to get in there with Parham, but man, I tell you what, I like the move for. I was reading Parham. I like the move for Metcalf, but where do you go from here? And we got our guy Jorge jumping in here as well. Let me add you to the mix. There we go. Thank you, Jorge, for jumping in. We're talking about the Steelers currently. I like the move for Metcalf. Everybody says this move thing means they move Pickens. I don't think so. The problem for me is, what are the Steelers doing? No Fields. Are you really going to run it back with Russell Wilson, who just fell apart at the end of the year, or bring in Aaron Rodgers? Now, I granted Aaron Rodgers 4-time MVP, but the dude's almost 42. He did nothing for the Jets. What did he do to make the Jets a better team? He didn't. He didn't do anything to make the Jets a better team. If the Steelers bring either one of those guys in, to me, I'm out on the Steelers this year completely. Like, you might as well start tanking. Just call it a tank job for the draft in Pittsburgh next year and try to be getting a top 5 pick for a QB next season. I don't know what they're doing. I want everybody else to jump on in here because I'll go off all freaking night long. We don't have that much time. So jump in here and go ahead and jump in and say what you had to say about the Steelers here.
You said tank, but Mike Tomlin physically can't do that. If he doesn't get his winning season, he'll explode. So I guess if you want tank, then you'll have to move on from Mike Tomlin.
I don't know what they're doing, and that's the problem here too. That's why I said I'd rather go see them go get like a Joe Milton, see what he does. If he absolutely sucks it up, if he has like a 45% completion percentage and the Steelers are awful, fine then. Great. Yeah. You got a top 5 pick. But like going 8-9 or 9-8 again with a 38 and a 42 or a 42-year-old quarterback is just, to me, it's stupid. You tried Russ last year. It didn't work. I feel like they have botched this situation so badly.
They're going to have to get someone who throws the ball deep downfield because they have 2 deep down the field wide receivers who have limited route trees. So either that or just dump it off to the tight end on a Freiermuth on a regular basis. I'm not sure they're going to have to add another piece here because Calvin Austin's a speed guy too. So I'm not sure what the all the ingredients, what kind of cake they're trying to make over here.
Fields would have been that deep thrower, but they've seen everyone around them leave, so change teams. Right. So never mind.
I don't know. You look at DK Metcalf's performances when he was with Russell Wilson. He had career years with Russell Wilson in that deep ball. So I don't know if Russell Wilson went back, that would necessarily hurt DK's, upside, or, with his chemistry he has there. But, a wide receiver that I think people may be forgetting that could be sliding under the radar that those in Dynasty League should maybe pay attention to is Roman Wilson, second-year wide receiver drafted last year by the Pittsburgh Steelers. John, you just said it. These 2 guys, DK and George Pickens, just go long, go deep, just hug it, chuck it, football. All
They're down there somewhere.
Go down there somewhere, YOLO. Whereas you got Roman Wilson, coming over in the middle, getting some of those yards there. We saw Calvin Austin be that primary middle of the field receiver, but I don't know, maybe second-year Roman Wilson has something to say about that this year.
I like Roman Wilson. I got him on a bunch of leagues sitting in my IR all last season, so I can't wait for him to come back. I'm a big Roman Wilson fan.
Yeah, I think he's going to be good. He's a great second-year buy there. Here's the thing is, I like everything else the Steelers have done around them so far. It's just like, it's all not going to work if you don't have a quarterback. I mean, if you take prime Ben Roethlisberger and put him on this team, I'm speaking a whole different story. I'm like, this team can compete for the Super Bowl, but like you can't do it with 2 over-the-hill washed QBs. And I just don't understand it. I don't understand where they're going here. Just absolutely killing me. Anything else to say on the Steelers? Because me, I'll go all day, and we got a bunch of teams to get to.
No, but I can't believe you passed up on Mike Gesicki, buddy. It's in the same division. They get off,
Oh, we're going back. We're going back
All
to
right,
Mike Gesicki. We were already talking about the Steelers, so I just kind of jumped into the Steelers. Right now, the Browns, they signed the big Myles Garrett deal. We'll talk about that, me and Jorge, on Shoot the Gap here later this week. But Kenny Pickett getting traded from the Eagles for Doran Thompson-Robinson and a 5th-round pick. So Kenny Pickett now has played for 3 of the 4 teams in the AFC North. Now he played for he's got the Steelers, the Browns, and the Eagles, and there now just needs to make a few more rounds. Kenny Pickett, again, we talked about, backup guy. I don't know if it makes any sense at all. Jamie, our resident Browns fan, says Browns suck. He likes it. I guess this is an okay move. I don't know why you're making it for the Browns.
He's a free agent. They could have done better with Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett, and he's a free agent. UDFA. I'll take
Mac Jones on the Steelers. Seriously, at this point, just take a young guy, and if he absolutely is terrible, then fine, be bad. But I don't know, man. It's killing me.
I have a hot take for Pickett and the Browns, but
let's go. Give it to me.
Okay. So I was talking about this with some friends when the news first broke about Kenny Pickett. My hot take is I think Kenny Pickett will be the week 1 starter for the Browns in 2025 because 1, they just traded away DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, for Pickett, and 2, Watson will probably miss most, if not all, of 2025 with the torn Achilles, then the re-torn Achilles, and who else do they really have? So I think it will be Pickett, and then they'll tank, and then in 2026 draft, they'll get like Arch Manning or something.
Here's the thing, and I don't want to see this happen, to be honest with you, because I really like him. I think Shedeur Sanders gets drafted by the Browns at number 2. I think he comes in. I think Shedeur ends up being their starter. But Kenny Pickett, you make a good point, Aiden. If you're out there needing a QB and might need a shot at a guy that could get you some starts, Kenny Pickett might be a guy that ends up getting you some starts this year.
You might as well tank anyway. So
what if they just brought Pickett in just to look at the hey, give me a glimpse at the playbook you were looking at last year. Let's see what you got. What plays can we steal? How do they run this? How do they run that? That kind of thing.
The 1996 Browns teams were better than the next 30 years teams. The Browns didn't have a team in 1996. Yes, you're correct, Jamie. Going the old history of the Browns. I don't want Sanders to go there just because how terrible QBs have gotten burned playing for Cleveland. And I like Shedeur Sanders a lot. He's my QB1. I get in arguments every day on X about it, but I think he ends up being the number 2 guy going to the Browns, and I think he ends up starting, but we'll see about that. Moving on, let's hit up the Bengals that we skipped here. Few things for the Bengals. They signed Samjay Perine to a 2-year deal worth $3.8 million. I'm not 100% sure what that's about. I wouldn't think Perine has any fantasy relevance. He's likely just a backup there. T. Higgins getting the non-exclusive franchise tag for a 2nd year, so it looks like he's going to be back with the Bengals. Mike Gesicki, like you said, John, we're kind of wondering what would happen with him. He ended up playing pretty well, especially when T. Higgins was out last year. He was actually pretty solid. 3-year deal worth $25.5 million for him, $12 million guaranteed. Does this give us? Do we feel better about Pickens fantasy wise? Do we feel the same about Gesicki fantasy wise, or does it just? Is it for you? I know, John, you like tight ends. I'll let you start this out.
I'm just going to say Gesicki might be a essential part of this offense going forward if they lose. If there's problems with not being able to sign players or people holding out or any injuries, anything like that. So I'm just kind of or trading guys away. I'm just kind of thinking that Gesicki he's a receiver. He doesn't block. He doesn't play inline tight. He doesn't play like inline very often. Even when he does, he's kind of a wasted a position there. He's going to play receiver for the Bengals like he did last year, and I think his value is only going to go up at this point. What do you think, Aiden?
So I'll just say that I'm not as high on Gesicki's fantasy value as you seem to be for 2025. I'm kind of like meh and different on it because I don't think very highly of Gesicki as a player. I never have. And 2, I don't think you ever want to rely on him as one of your top 1 or 2 starting tight ends. But I will say, as an injury fill-in and bye-week fill-in here and there during the year, he does provide a nice steady floor. But other than that, I don't really see any appeal personally.
All right, let's move on to the AFC South. Start things off with the Texans. They made a bunch of moves, not a ton on offense. Braxton Berrios signed a 1-year, $2 million deal. He's just a depth piece. Darway Agunble, 1-year, $2 million deal. Again, another depth piece. A big move for them right now is acquiring in a trade with the Jags. They got Christian Kirk for a 7th rounder, and also then a free agent deal with Justin Watson, obviously another depth piece. How do we feel about Christian Kirk in Houston?
Go ahead.
I personally love it. Like, this is an awesome trade for Kirk's fantasy value, at least in my opinion. Defenses and corners and opposing safeties, however you want to look at it and term it as, are going to want to double team and bracket and use specific coverage schemes and techniques for Nico Collins. And you look what that slot position was last year before they all get injured, whether it was Stefan Diggs, whether it was Tank Dell before he broke his foot again or kneecap, whatever it was. Pretty serious injury. But needless to say, I love this for Kirk's fantasy value personally. And I think people are going to be overlooking him in drafts, and you'll be able to get a quote unquote discount in value, if you will, on his. I don't know if you guys agree. That's just what my outlook is right now.
Yeah, Kirk seems to be an injured person that really didn't fit in the offense, to me, as far as in Jacksonville. And even in, I don't really see him. He just didn't fit with Trevor Lawrence, is the way I felt sometimes.
I agree.
So, Jorge, what do you think about that?
So it's interesting because, we're a couple seasons removed from Christian Kirk being close to being a wide receiver 1 in PPR scoring. And then last year there was some kind of disconnect. Then again, the entire offense for Jacksonville outside of Brian Thomas Jr., was disconnected, so to speak. The running game wasn't working. A lot of the receiving game wasn't working. Going to Houston now, I like it. I'm right there with Aiden. The fact that they will be trying to take Nico Collins away does open stuff up in the middle of the field for Christian Kirk to get those yards after the catch. So I definitely agree with you there. I have a question, though. As somebody who has both Nico Collins and Christian Kirk on his dynasty roster, do you try and flip one, or are you cool rolling out 2 of those wide receivers on the same team week in and week out?
For me, I don't mind having both those guys. I think CJ Stroud's going to have a bounce back year for the Texans. It was a little bit of a down year. Things kind of went wrong. The O-line got banged up. He was getting a ton of pressure, and they just seemed like out of sync on offense all season long. I still think CJ Stroud is a stud. I think he's going to be really good. I think that easily he can make 2 guys super high relevant players. Now, if you can go out and get Christian Kirk for cheap, I love that. If you have him, I just don't know if I want to move him because I don't know what I can get for him. I don't know if it's enough value for me, especially if he ends up being the number 2 with the Tank Dell injury being out, with the Stefan Diggs stuff. I like Kirk in this situation a lot. I think he's going to be a good player. I wouldn't mind having both those guys, but I'm also a guy who's not averse to having multiple players on the same team. Shocker, with all my Steelers and Colts players all the time. But I really don't mind having guys on the same team, especially if everything is, if the offense is good. Where you're getting killed is if the offense is bad and you have multiple guys on the same team. Yeah. So I don't mind it at all.
Well, I was just going to bring that up, the point you brought up, just to continue the point here, JT, is sorry, I'm gonna have it. When you look at Christian Kirk, and if you want to move him, are you going to get back enough value where you really say to yourself, yeah, that was worth it? Right now, probably not. So you might as well just hold on to both of them and see what happens and hope for the best.
Yeah, I agree. I got a first and a second for Christian Kirk before last year's draft, and I'm feeling fantastic about that trade that I made in the Baby and Boomer John's home league. I made that move, and I didn't want to give up Kirk at the time, but I felt like there's no way I could pass that value, so I love that move. Moving on to my Colts. Not a lot offensively yet, but they finally got some nice stuff defensively. Shavarius Ward and Cameron Bynum. Me and Jorge will tackle that on Shoot the Gap later this week, so we'll skip it here tonight. Ashton Doolin, currently the only signing right now. 2-year deal, $8.5 million. Doing a nice a nice special teams player. Also, guy, it's like a pretty good guy for if you use like your fifth wideout. So obviously not very fantasy relevant, but for the Colts, a decent thing. Moving on to the Jags, a couple nice moves. Jorge, I'm going to let you jump on this one as your Commanders lost a man here. Diomi Brown signing a 1-year, $10 million deal with incentives up to $12 million. What do you think about Diomi Brown heading to the Jags?
He played so well down the stretch of the season, and really started to develop a rapport with Jaden Daniels. And then you saw the playoff performance. He had a couple clutch catches both in the Tampa game and in the Detroit game. So the fact that they were able to get, meaning the Jaguars, Diomi Brown for, 1 year, 10 mil with up to 12 mil in incentives. Yeah. It makes me wonder, well, if I'm Adam Peters, and as a Commanders fan, it's in Adam Peters we trust. That's until he proves us wrong. That being said, man, like you couldn't throw out 1 year, 10 mil deal for this guy, just like a prove it deal, just to see what he's got. And if they
loads of cap space.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that they didn't do that makes me wonder whether or not they're done at the wide receiver position in free agency.
Yeah,
I can't imagine they are. But
when you got a young quarterback and he finally finds rhythm with a player like Diomi Brown, you want to keep that continuity on the team. I'm not really sure why they let him walk. I'm happy he's with Sunshine now. I got Trevor Lawrence on almost every one of my fantasy teams, but at the same time, I feel bad that Jaden Daniels has to start from scratch with a different receiver. There's a lot of you're not going to hit. Receivers are not just a guaranteed 100% hit in the NFL draft. You finally got someone that's making that Jaden Daniels can depend on, and you let him walk away. I don't get it, man.
Jorge, we didn't get to talk about it because it didn't happen today, but it was previously reported. What do we think about the Deebo Samuel move with making the 49ers trading him over? I personally like that move for him, matched up with McLaren. I like both those guys. What do you think about that move for the Commanders?
Man, so you've asked that question. People around the water cooler at work have asked me that question. My own physical therapist, who's a Commanders fan, has asked me that question. What do you think about the Deebo move? And all I have to say is fifth rounder. All it cost was a fifth round pick. I hope that they utilize Deebo as a strict wide receiver. I hope the days of him being the jet sweep de facto running back guy is over, because he does that for 3 games and you're like, all right, great, fantastic. And then he's out for 4 weeks or 5 weeks because of a shoulder injury or a rib injury. And it's like, dude, like, we need you on the field. And I would like to think that they meaning Cliff Kingsbury and the Commanders are going to want to utilize him as that traditional slot wide receiver, just because he does get that yards after the catch. He can make people miss. He is that elusive in the middle of the field. But if it doesn't work out, again, you're only losing a 5th round pick.
Yeah, I like the move. You got to keep giving Gene Jones. You just made a huge move. If you're Washington this last year, making that huge jump to the playoffs, you got to keep the pressure on. You can't just sit and be like, oh, we're good, let's just stay pat. You got to keep adding to it. And I thought Deebo for the price was a solid move there. Other moves here for the Jags. Nick Mullins, 2-year deal. I'm a little surprised they didn't bring back Mac Jones with the way he played last year, but Nick Mullins signs on to be a backup. Hunter Long, a guy that's been in the league for a while at tight end, but hasn't been really fantasy relevant at all. He signs on as well for the Jags. On the other side, Tennessee, so far, really nothing much for them. Dan Moore signing the ex-Steelers player 4-year, $82 million deal on offensive line. So he'll help the O-line there, but fantasy relevant, not much for Tennessee, as we'll wait and see. Does Tennessee with the number 1 pick, do they go with Cam Ward? Do they go with Shedeur Sanders, or do they end up making a trade there? So anybody real quickly want to throw in their 2 cents on what they think the Titans do with the number 1 pick?
I have to go quarterback. I think they have to go quarterback. It's just something that I think they're done with the entire situation with what they have, what they rolled out. I think it's Cam Ward, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Jamie says here he thinks the Jags' biggest winner is Brenton Strange. Yeah, with Evan Ingram going away, I think Brenton Strange is due. We saw he had a couple big games last year. I think he's ready to make the move. He was a guy that felt like when they took him in the second round, he was going to be a 3-year guy. It was just going to take a couple years for him to really get in the mold. He's going to have all kinds of opportunities. Now, we've got a breaking signing here, and we're going to get to it, so we won't talk about it right this second, but I want to let everybody know that Najee Harris has signed with the Chargers. I absolutely love that spot. We'll hold off on talking about it here for just a second as we get to the Chargers. Because we're going to do, well, you know what? We're jumping to the AFC West right now. Let's just skip right ahead of the Chargers here. I'm going to just say it right now. I thought the Steelers should have tried to bring him back for a reasonable contract. He is now going to the Chargers. I said, if the Chargers weren't going to draft a first-round running back, that I thought this would be a really nice landing spot for Najee on this offense. I absolutely love this for fantasy purposes. I own a lot of Najee. I think he could be very solid on this team with Herbert and the passing game. Who wants to talk first about Najee? Jump in on my excitement here because I love this move. I wish the Steelers kept him, but I love this move of him going to the Chargers.
I can jump in quick if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I was talking about this on Twitter earlier because Rappaport, hour or so before we came on here, said the teams were talking. They're very close to closing a deal. And you just said breaking news. They did officially sign him. I think this is like a hand in glove fit. This is like a perfect fit, in my opinion. Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman like to run the football. Yes, they have Ladd McConkey, but outside of him, they don't have many weapons, if you will, on the outside, whether it's a tight end or in the slot too. I think this is a perfect fit. One question I have, because Najee's, from fantasy and a real life football perspective, I think he's gotten too much hate in his career. He's at 1,000 rushing yards all year of his career. He can catch the ball. He can pass block really well. I really like him as a gritty, tough runner between the tackles and goal line back. One question I have for you guys, though, does this take them out of most mocked, in my opinion, is at 22nd overall, Omarion Hampton? Does this take them out of that, or do you think they can still do that, or do they wait till the mid to late rounds to take a running back? Because there's a lot of moving parts here with that in the draft, in my opinion.
To me, I'll just jump in real quick, and then John or Jorge can jump in. I think they're out on running back in the first round, signing Najee here, just because I think this is a really deep draft. I think they still go running back. And I have to be honest with you. I think damn near every team in the league should be taking a running back in the draft this year. I really do. It's a loaded draft. There's actually teams I think should double up and take 2 running backs, to be honest with you. So I think they take a running back. But to me, with D-end, with Khalil Mack going, Bosa going, I think they're going to look at D-line. And
well, they re-signed Mack.
Did Matt get re-signed? I missed that news.
Yeah, this morning.
Okay, that's fantastic. So he brings him back with Thule, which me and Jorge talked about on Shoot the Gap. He's one of my favorite guys for next year. I think they may go defense. I think they go running back, but I would be surprised if they don't wait till later, like 3rd, 4th round before they make a move on running back. What do you guys, Jorge, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense to get some depth there. Again, if they were fully in on Najee Harris being the guy for the future, they would have given him more than a 1-year deal. At least that's my thought process in the whole matter.
Are there numbers on that deal? Do we have numbers yet?
I do not have them right in front of me.
I have not seen it. It was estimated to be somewhere between a 2 and 3 year deal and $8 to $10 million a year, but I have not seen the final yet. I was trying to look it up on my phone as we were going.
Because that can tell us a lot about, for fantasy purposes, the commitment they give to a player. So,
right. To go back to what you said, JT, as far as like the Steelers Najee should have gone back to the Steelers. Why would he want to go back to Pittsburgh? You mentioned, or Aiden, you were saying the fact that, some disrespect, but no disrespect. His blocking, he basically was asked to do everything in that Steelers offense but run the ball. And they gave a lot of snaps to Jalen Warren because that offensive line was just so bad. And now he has the opportunity to go to a team, even if it's on a short deal, to get the rushing upside because the volume is going to be there. Because to Aiden's point, outside of Ladd McConkey, who do they really have as a playmaker?
Quentin Johnston.
So I just looked it up. I did find it. Najee signed a 1 year, $9.25 million deal. So
That's
only a
some
1 year
good
deal,
money.
which means I thought if he did a 1 year deal, it'd be about 1 year, $10 million. I thought the Steelers might sign him for that. So 1 year, 9.25. So I think the Chargers are definitely going to go running back still with just a 1 year deal on Najee, kind of a 1 year
Wow.
prove it deal. But Najee, it feels like later on in his career, this feels like he could kind of do this for the next 3 or 4 years if he can stay relevant fantasy and
1 year
NFL wise.
deals.
1 year, $8 to $10 million deals. Just keep doing a couple of those over and over again. I still like the landing spot. I think he could. I think in a John Harbaugh offense or Jim Harbaugh offense, I think he could be really good. So
I'm thinking they should
I
go
like
like
that spot.
I'm thinking I'm not a big fan of the Najee, the receiver out of the backfield. So I think maybe you can go with like a Rashard Smith or even a Cam Scatterbo on day 3, beginning of day 3, possibly if he falls to him.
DJ
that kind of
Giddens.
deal. Yeah, so something like that, exactly. A receiving back to go out of the backfield and let just let Najee do all the inside work and the early down stuff. That's the way I would love.
And
that
Najee isn't a bad receiver. I mean, he had 70 catches his rookie year. Obviously, Brandon Rossberg was throwing a lot of dump off passes that year, but he can catch the ball. He's not an elite at it, but it's not like he has zero receiving profile. I did see here the 1 year, $18 million deal for Mac now popping up for the Chargers. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't see any other Chargers moves other than the move of Palmer going away. Any other that I missed there for the Chargers offensively?
No.
Okay, then let's jump back to the top of the AFC West here. Broncos, we just talked about. Zach Wilson is gone to Miami. They did sign Jarrett Stidham to a 2-year deal, backing up Bo Nix. Signed a couple here this week. No one else currently for the Broncos. Any Broncos news I'm missing?
They lost the running back. I mean, I guess they
did.
didn't.
Javonte Williams. We'll talk about him with Dallas. Javonte Williams gone. We'll bring him up in just a minute here with Dallas. For the Chiefs here, Elijah Mitchell leaves the Niners. They get him on a short deal. Marquise Brown re-signing 1 year, $11 million deal. So going to bring back Hollywood a chance to, basically was injured all last season. Do we like that? Do we like Hollywood? We buying him at all here on the Chiefs for another year?
We love Hollywood. If he could stay healthy, that'd be awesome. He's hurt every year.
I'm not.
I got him on a bunch of leagues. I traded him last year in like 5 or 6 different leagues for other players, similar type players. But I knew it was going to be kind of a waiting game. He's still young. He's still youngish. I'm okay to keep him or trade for him anyway.
I love Aiden's take on Hollywood Brown. If you head over to fantasyandframes.com, you can read one of his many articles he's been cranking out here this weekend. So definitely love your take there, Aiden.
Thank you.
Let's jump on to the next team here. The Raiders, that's one of the teams making the most moves. Pete Carroll signed as the head coach. They go and make the trade for Geno Smith from the Seahawks. Everybody's kind of wondering what the Raiders were going to do, maybe draft a guy. Reports are coming out. They were at number 6. Reports were coming out. They definitely like Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders. They said they did not think there was any way a QB was getting to them at 6, either of those guys. So they made the move for Geno Smith, who Pete Carroll knows well. He's the one who Pete basically gave Geno the job and was the guy who was like, let's get rid of Russ. So that's a nice move for them. I know we'll talk about it. Jorge, your guy, Jeremy Chin, leaving the Commanders, going there. We'll talk about that on Shoot the Gap. But all kinds of – it feels like the Raiders are in the mix on a lot of guys and could make some moves here. What do we think they do at 6 now that they've got a QB?
Ashton Jenkins.
I don't know if they have the QB of the future yet. I think they just have a QB. I mean, I'm not a Geno Smith lover. If they can still trade up and maybe, go if Sanders does possibly – fall past where they think that he was going, they could still trade up, but I don't think Geno Smith is the future of the team.
You think they go the Falcons route and just draft their quarterback
after a huge deal?
Round?
I could see the Raiders. Honestly, if for some reason something gets crazy and one of those those quarterbacks drop to 6, I could absolutely see them taking one of those guys, even though they just traded for Geno. not expecting one of those guys to get there. I do think that they were kind of in on Jackson Dart in the second round, and now he's getting so much hype and it might go in the first round. I think they got nervous thinking like, oh, our move, we were going to get Jackson Dart in the second. And then I think that might be a thing, but I definitely think they're a team that could draft a QB. Just depends on who they like. I could absolutely see them taking like a Quinn Ewers in the second round as well out of Texas.
Yeah.
I think they could take a young guy. I'm not a Ewers fan personally, but I could definitely see the Raiders jumping on the name and taking a young guy like that sometime in the second or third round.
That would be an overdraft, but whatever.
I agree. But the Raiders are classic overdrafters. That's just what they do.
Yes,
they like a guy, they like a name, and they just go get the guy, whether it's great value or not. I would not make that move at all, but I could see them possibly doing that. Let's jump into the NFC now here. We were just talking about him with the Broncos. He lost the Broncos moving on for him 1 year. Small deal for Javonte Williams.
So cheap.
$3 million. Javonte Williams, it is falling off for him. He's got to show that he can do it this year. So they signed Javonte. We had a question earlier. I'm going to bring it back up. Paul Vogue brought it in. Thank you, Paul, for making a comment and jumping in here. He said, what do we think with Rico Dowell now? Now that they signed Javonte Williams for that cheap a deal, it's almost seems like it makes more sense for the Cowboys to bring Rico back, but now they've made that move. Do we think we got any idea where we think where Rico might land?
Saints.
Aiden says Saints. John, you got any anything up your sleeve on Rico?
I was for sure that he was coming back to be a part-time committee in Dallas because he knows the system. So I don't know. I mean, I thought the whole time he was coming back to Dallas. I was under the impression that he was there. He's going to be a Cowboy for even with they're drafting a running back in this draft. That's a given. But I thought Donald was going to be the second part of that. There might be all three of those running backs be a part of this team right now. So you never know. They could bring that. If Donald doesn't have anybody else to pick him up, there's too many running backs in this draft to sign a running back to a lot of money like this. But it's been happening lately. But I think Donald will probably come back to the Cowboys because nobody else is going to pick him up.
Or what about the Broncos? They just lost Javonte, so
just swap running backs this year.
Yeah.
The Steelers and the Jets are looking to possibly do that at quarterback, killing me, but that's a possibility. Jamie, I meant to bring this up earlier when we were talking about the Chargers. He said Kyle Juszczyk released. Did Seattle jump the gun, sign a fullback last week? What about Juszczyk going to the Chargers? I think that would be fantastic.
Wait,
going to the Chargers lead block for Najee. Sign me up for that.
Was Harbaugh there? Was Juszczyk there when Harbaugh was the coach of the Niners? I don't remember.
I don't think so. No, that was Harbaugh was early. I think
he might have been there before.
Yeah, I think it was Harbaugh was earlier, but
I never thought
I still like it.
Juszczyk released.
I never did. That just happen?
Yeah, it did. It happened.
Okay.
It hurts my heart.
Yeah, one of the last few elite fullbacks in the league. So Dallas, as we've seen, Dallas all in, as Jerry Jones keeps saying, and their big all in moves. Javonte Williams, they have done nothing else so far other than a few deals on defense. So going to be interesting to see if Jerry changes his mind or not. Let's move on to the Giants, a real interesting team this offseason. They've re-signed ex-Illini Tommy DeVito to a 1-year deal right now, it seems to be the backup. Unless they don't sign anyone, then Tommy DeVito sees it ahead for the Giants. I think there's a chance. There's rumors out there right now that possibly the Giants are going to try to move up to number 1 and get a QB and make a trade with the Titans. So would you guys be in favor of that? Do you think the Giants should try to make that move? It looked like they were going to get a QB at 3, but now everything's saying Sanders might go to the Browns at 2. Do they have to move up to 1 to get Ward? Do you make the deal, or do you say, hey, let's just roll with whatever random guy we can bring in for this year and look for QB next year?
I think they're going to get Rodgers and Ward is what I think.
Yeah,
Rodgers is for a piecemeal. Yeah, exactly. Sign Aaron Rodgers to a 1 year. I mean, say, hey, man, you're 42 years old. You're going to lead this kid. We're going to draft Cam Ward at 1. We're going to draft you. You got to show this guy the ropes. And if he says, no, I'm not doing that, it's not my job to teach somebody, then, they'll get somebody else in there that's got a little bit of an experience to be the bridge quarterback for Cam Ward.
Is Drew Lock still there? Is he still under contract for the?
No,
Lock is not. He was on a 1-year deal. Again, I am at this point where I'm like, give me Drew Lock, give me Joe Milton, any of those guys for the Steelers over Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers at
Mac
this point.
Jones.
I would want it rather to see those two guys throw 50% completion percentage and do nothing but chuck deep balls to Pickens and DK and have a terrible year than go 8-9 with Russ or Aaron Rodgers at this point. I'm so over it.
I think I agree.
I would love to see Locke go there if everything else fell apart. But I will not hold my breath on it. Though, John, I did just see a report.
I
did just see a
Oh
report
boy.
that the Patriots are actively looking to move Joe Milton. They want to get him on a team where he can play. They know he's going to get stuck behind Drake May. That's why they brought in Dobbs, the veteran. They're looking to move him. Let's go Steelers. Let's freaking make a move. Let's throw 80-yard bombs all game long to DK and Pickens. Just send them both on fly routes every freaking play. I love it.
The fact that the entire NFL passed on him last year is only that scares me, but I love Joe Milton. I love what he did. You know, you saw him against a backup defense. He went in there and looked like a superstar. But I think Joe Milton sitting on the bench for a year, learning an NFL how to be an NFL quarterback probably is exactly what it needed. You know, so I would love to see him go.
John, I just wanted to turn this into a Joe Milton podcast for you.
I know. I can't wait till he goes to the Colts. We can talk about him every week. It's great.
Then we could just throw a throwing contest between Anthony Richardson and Joe Milton every week. It'd be freaking great. I love it. The other signing right now for the Giants, they're in talks for a lot of players, but the only other sign right now is they re-signed Darius Slayton, 3-year, $36 million deal. Are you guys in or out on Slayton in fantasy?
He's underrated.
John says underrated. Aiden, what do you think?
Other than Malik Neighbors, I don't really know if I want anyone. Theo Johnson can be a sleeper tight end, I guess, maybe. But other than Malik Neighbors, I don't really see anyone that warrants like any volume here. Even this past year, Slayton was nothing more than a depth piece / a waiver wire guy here and there during the year. I don't really understand why they keep re-signing Slayton when they don't just realize they can let him walk like 2 or 3 times now and upgrade from him. So I'm not really in on him, nothing more than like a waiver wire option during the year, in my opinion.
Jorge, what do you think about Slayton?
For me, Slayton is a best ball, and I mean a deep quality wide receiver. But to go back to Aiden, your point there, I will disagree in the sense that I'm a fan of Wan'Dale. They just re-signed Wan'Dale Robinson to a deal. He is like a PPR monster. He's been getting better and better each year since he was drafted. I could definitely see in my redraft leagues.
I forgot about him, but yes.
Jorge, I was just going to say that, so I'm glad you brought it up. I'd like Wan'Dale Robinson for the price. He's cheap. You got to have a slot guy. Obviously, he was coming off an injury. He looked good as a rookie. Got hurt at times. He was playable in fantasy and flex as a flex play last year along the way. I like Wan'Dale. I think he's going to keep getting better, especially with all the everyone concentrating on Neighbors. I like Wan'Dale as a little bit of a deeper sleeper for fantasy purposes. What do we think about the Eagles here? Just trading away Kenny Pickett, Dorian Thompson-Robinson makes sense because he's a little more of the style of Jalen Hurts. So if Hurts goes down, they can kind of run a little more of the same offense. I was actually a fan of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He was a guy that I kind of thought when everything happened with Deshaun Watson, I was a little surprised they didn't give him a little more of a look and let him run a couple games in a row before last year when they brought in Jameis. So what do you guys think about this move? Obviously, this is a deep super flex league or 2 QB league move for Dorian Robinson. But if I've Hurts, I'm probably going to go out there and see if I can get Robinson and put him up and get him to back up Hurts just in case.
I'm not even going to answer this question.
Go ahead.
John's like out. John's like, I don't even want to talk about this. So, Jorge, if you got something to say, jump in there.
Yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson to me is like the scout team Jaden Daniels. That's like the only time it's in action. Like when it's Commanders week, it's like, all right, where's Dorian? Bring it in. All right, you're Jaden Daniels for the week. Every other week, you're on the bench. We'll use another quarterback. Thank you very much.
That's actually a really good point. That's funny. I did think about it. I love that. 2-year extension for Saquon Barkley. All of a sudden, him and CMC back-to-back years prove that running backs do matter. Gets a 2-year, $41 million extension. So he's back there. Saquon good to go for a while. Let's get into the Commanders, Jorge. We talked about it a little bit. Debo already made the signing. They lost De'Ami Brown, re-signed, 1-year deal for Zach Ertz, a 3-year deal, which I'm real shocked about this, for John Bates, technically the second or third stringer, depending on where you want to put Ben Sinnott, the rookie from last year. But to help the offense, I know this doesn't help in fantasy, but it technically does. Laramie Tunsil, the 5-time Pro Bowler, traded from the Texans. It feels like the Commanders are right. They're looking to roll. They want to stay hot.
So I was listening to local DC sports talk on the way home after this trade was made with the Texans, and they had on a bunch of Texans beat reporters. They were on the fly trying to get guys to talk about them from a Texans point of view, and every single Texans beat reporter was like, "What the hell was Houston thinking?"
Yep.
Because
their O-line was already bad, and then they trade their best offensive lineman? I don't
now
know.
all 5 spots are bad.
Right. The rationale is that you have a bunch of young players that you're going to have to, re-sign in a few years, and somebody's going to have to get the short end of the stick here, and so they thought that they can get Tunsil more this year than they would waiting another year. But the fact that they weren't able to get a first round pick thrown into that package is literally a 2, a 3, and a 4. It's a 3. I think it's a 3 and a 4 this year, and then it's a 2 next year or something like that.
Yes, it's a second and a fifth next year. That's a steal.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm happy, but it is. Again, for me, it's great for Jaden Daniels. It's great for him and being able to be protected, but I'm still a little weary of the Deebo Samuel move because, in my mind, I don't know if they really addressed wide receiver. Yes, they have him as a physical body. Yes, he is a wide receiver. I'm just scared about the guy getting hurt and how they use him. Because if he's not on the field, because again, like they put him in motion all the time, or he's running out of the backfield, he's out for a few weeks. What did we really get out of him? So I'm hoping they really do address wide receiver going forward. Michael Gallup, my boy Michael Gallup making a comeback, practicing with the Commanders tomorrow, doing a little something.
I thought Michael Gallup was going to be something back in the day, man. I actually liked him a lot.
I liked him a lot.
I did too.
Other moves, like we said, the tight end moves, Zach Ertz, tell you what, had a pretty solid year last year. If you were in a start 2 tight end league or a higher tight end premium, he was a startable player. I think obviously he was a nice blanket for Jaden Daniels to drop it off. Obviously, if you're a Ben Sinnott guy, John, I know you are. I've got quite a bit of Ben Sinnott. Probably pushes him down a little bit in fantasy. It's probably another year before you see a lot of production out of him. But to me, I think it's a smart move. And John Bates has been around for a while. He's fantasy irrelevant, but he's a guy that can block and do some things for the Commanders as well. So if you're a Ben Sinnott owner,
go get him now.
Possibly move him or go trade for him now because he's gonna be low on a lot of people's radars because I wouldn't expect a lot out of him this year, but I'd still like him moving forward. Let's move on to the NFC North. Durham Smythe signing with the Bears. Not much there. He's more of a blocker, not a guy you can count on for a lot of receptions. The one thing you do like, though, for the Bears fantasy wise, they have gone after O-line. They have signed a ton of O-line. Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, who supposedly turned down a lot more money from other teams to go to the Bears. This looks really nice for the Bears. If you're a Caleb Williams owner, if you're a DJ Moore owner, a DeAndre Swift, depending what they do at running back owner, this looks a lot better for the Bears, as this has been the one thing that's absolutely haunted them the last 5 or 6 seasons is the O-line. And it finally looks like the Bears are getting something done here. John, what do you think?
It looks like they're all in on Caleb Williams. They built a line around him now. They're probably going to get their offensive lineman in the draft. I made a tweet today that talking about this pretty much solidifies they're going to go running back maybe early, if not the first pick, then definitely one of 2 picks in the second round they have. I said Austin Genty's going to have to figure out what number he wants because DJ Moore's got number 2. He ain't going to be able to take that one, but it's they're definitely going after a running back. That's for sure. Do you think they're going to go with a D-line, offensive line, or a running back with that first pick? Because those are the 3 biggest needs they have.
Aiden, what do you think? I originally thought they were going O-line, and now with all these signings, I'm like, ooh, now they've really opened it up. Do they go D-end? Do they go D-tackle? I mean, they've got a couple big signings on defense, so that might change that as well, as they signed Dayo Adebayo from the Colts. I thought it was a really nice signing. Grady Jarrett taking up the middle. So those are two spots they really needed in the draft, and now they got him in free agency. Are we setting this up for a GT, Aston GT to the Bears at 10 if he gets there? Do we think it could happen?
I still think they should go trenches, O-line or D-line. I lean D-line a bit, but I will say this, JT and everyone else, I think they've set themselves up very nice for BPA. I think they have the luxury now of going best player available, whatever position that's at, just take them.
I think so too. I think this is where, last year they felt like they had to take an O-lineman, so they moved and didn't get Jalen Carter when they could have had Jalen Carter, but I felt like they felt desperate. They had to go O-line. I agree with you. Best player available now. I feel like at the Bears at 10, you've got a lot of options. Say somebody is real desperate for a player. Yeah. What if somebody wants to move into 10 and you move back a little bit if you're the Bears? I think you could do that now that you've made some moves.
The problem is the Bears did it last year with the Eagles, and look what they gave up. I mean, they gave up a really, really good player in Jalen Carter. Now you're talking about Kenneth Grant is there at 10. You buy somebody like that you can get on the defensive line to solidify. Yeah. I don't know. It's
I
tough.
like him. I like Walter Nolan. Like I said, I like this spot for the Bears because it felt like they were almost like pigeonholed into they had to go O-line. And now I feel like if there's a O-lineman they love, they can take one, but they don't have to. They don't have to. If a D lineman slaps, say something crazy happens and Mason Graham drops. Everybody was calling him a top 5 guy. Then his arms were a little shorter. They didn't test as well athletically. I still think he's a really good football player, but he's not a clear-cut top 5 guy after the combine that I think a lot of people thought he would be. I still think he's a top 10 player. Say someone like him, like a car, drops to 10. Now, if you're the Bears, you could grab him at 10. I love something like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Let's move on. Lions, right now, all defensive moves, some nice moves, but again, we'll talk about defense. Me and Jorge have got multiple shows lined up on Shoot the Gap, so make sure you go in and subscribe and hit that follow button and make sure you know when our shows are coming on. We got shows coming Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. Anybody on the Lions offensively I've missed that I'm not seeing on my list?
Single offensive signing, so I think you're good.
Yeah, because I said they've been all defense so far. Green Bay Packers, kind of the same thing. They've been all defense so far. Nothing really for the Packers on the offense, even though there's a lot of talk of some guys going. Nothing yet there for them. Minnesota Vikings, we'll talk about him here in a minute, but Sam Darnold is officially gone. He is the Seattle. So it is the J.J. McCarthy show. I know Thor Nystrom tweets about it every day. He can't be happier now that JJ is the guy. Aaron Jones, a big 2-year re-signing for him, 2-year, $20 million, $13 million guaranteed. In the ex-Colt, Ryan Kelly moving on, now the center of the Vikings, 2 years, $18 million, $9 million guaranteed. A little bit older player. He slipped a bit these last couple of years, but a really smart center, a really good player. I think that's a nice signing for the Vikings. Is the Vikings are filling a lot of holes kind of round. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do draft wise. Anybody got any thoughts on the Vikings before we move on?
I didn't. I was hoping they signed Aaron Jones one more year, selfishly as a fantasy owner, but I didn't think they were going to do it for money that was going to be involved with this running back class. But it's a 1-year deal. $13 million guaranteed is a 1-year deal. Next year they're just going to cut them. It is what it is. But so I think it's possibility now they're still going to get drafted running back somewhere in this draft as a part-time back first of all, and second of all the running back of the future.
I want to make a quick statement if I can.
Yeah, jump in.
I want to give it all fantasy managers out there around the world. Do not fade Justin Jefferson because he has shown he's an elite superstar in this league. Top 2 with 3 with CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase right up there. But for fantasy football, do not fade him. He can produce with Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, Sam Darnold, now JJ McCarthy. It doesn't matter. He's still a fantasy superstar. So I just want to say, do not fade Jefferson. It doesn't matter who his QB is. He can still be a superstar.
Yeah, I think we got Tootsie Pop in here. Skull. Yeah, Vikings. I like what they're doing. I think I do. I tell you what, I told everybody last year when I went to the combine, the talk before the combine was, is JJ McCarthy really a first-round quarterback? Do people really believe that he has first-round talent? I watched him at the combine right in the same group with Michael Penix and Bo Nix, and I immediately was like, I like JJ McCarthy better than both those guys. He looked so good. Guy just way he carries himself. He throws zip on the ball, placement, everything. I think JJ McCarthy has a huge upside. I think he's going to feed Justin Jefferson. I'm with you on that one. I don't think there's any reason to move off Justin Jefferson whatsoever. I like him. I like JJ. I think JJ is a buy. If people aren't totally sold on him yet, he's going to be a new guy. He's going to be good. I don't know what the cost is right now. I'd have to look it up on some Keep Trade Cuts and some other websites of what people on DLF, what he's selling for. But I wouldn't mind going out and getting him. I know I took him in a couple leagues I was rebuilding, knowing that he was going to miss the whole year. I took him like late first, early second, knowing that I could sit on him all year in some super flex leagues. So I'm super pumped about what he can do. John, you want to jump in here?
I'm just going to say it. He's a local kid from around here.
Yep, from Chicago area.
On Nazareth. And the team was so good around him that he kind of carried. And the same thing happened in Michigan. They ran the ball a lot. They had a great defense. JJ McCarthy, I mean, he's good, but man, it ain't like Dan Marino out there. He's been carried by some pretty good teams. So I'm excited to see him, but I'm cautiously optimistic on his future. I'll put it that way.
I think JJ's a winner. I don't know what his fantasy top end looks like just yet. I think he's going to be a really good pro quarterback. He's been good at every level, good in high school, good in college, if not great at those areas. I think he's going to be really good pros. And Kevin O'Connell, shout out, San Diego State guy. He seems to be the quarterback whisperer. Everybody he works with plays outstanding. I'm actually more pumped about JJ this year in the fact that he got to sit, watch, and learn all year last year.
Yeah.
And now he gets to come in knowing, unlike the Steelers, got to be mad, they committed to their guy. They're like, JJ's our guy. We know Darnold played well last year, but JJ, you're our guy, and they committed to him, something the Steelers should have done. I love that even more because now JJ is going in with supreme confidence that this team believes he's their man. Yeah. So I love that part about it too. Let's move on to the NFC South. Nothing to speak of right now from the Atlanta Falcons here in the early going. The Carolina Panthers, they re-signed Andy Dalton to back up as we hope we don't see a repeat of last year with Bryce Young getting pulled and Andy Dalton come in. I think we're over that, hopefully. But Andy Dalton back to back him up. Tommy Tremble. Yeah. Wow. John's guy, Tommy Tremble. I tell you what, these are the things that blow my mind. But Tommy Tremble, who's a nice football player, a guy that blocks well, a good team guy, not fantasy relevant whatsoever. But when you can get 2 years, $8 million a year, 2 years, $16 million, and then the Steelers don't want to give up a 1 year, $10 million deal for Najee, that just, I'm sorry, I'm shook. I'm shook. You're going to get $8 million to basically a backup blocking tight end, and you don't want to give your starting running back who has 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons the same amount of money or just slightly more. It's just sickening. I tell you what, I've been on the fritz all day today. I'm trying to hold it together. It's not been a good day. I'm already looking at I feel like I'm in some other fan bases where I'm just like, I'm already out on the season. It's over. We're going to be horrible. We're not even at Wednesday yet at the start of the new year, and I'm already upset about everything. So I'm trying to pull it together and hope something good happens. Nothing else really for the Panthers as they've gone heavy defensive moves. So we'll talk about again that later in the week. Saints, same way. Not much on the Saints in right now. As it stands, you guys think the Saints stand pat and they go with Derek Carr and Rattler next year and kind of let them battle it out in camp?
Yes,
they've already done that. They've already said they're going to.
They're just going to stick with that, right? There's no reason to make a move if you're the Saints, correct?
No.
They're
Plus they have no money. They have no money to do shit anyway, so they're SOL.
They never have any money ever.
Just now, so
what'd you say, Jorge?
I said they had enough money to bring in Chase Young, which says a lot.
That is a great big deal.
John, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Your guy, Chris Godwin. We were kind of hoping he might be on the moves. A couple teams we like him, but he's back in Tampa. I actually think that's a nice spot for him fantasy wise. He was absolutely tearing it up last season before the injury. They re-signed him to a 3-year, $66 million deal, $44 million guaranteed. So they obviously love him. I think Baker was all in their ear, like, we got to bring Godwin back.
Yeah.
I think it's a great move.
Yeah.
Hopefully that injury looked terrible last year. Let's hope
Gruesome.
the rehab's going well and that he's going to come back and be able to be 100%. I'm guessing the doctors have given them pretty favorable reports, because you don't go and give a guy $44 million that basically broke his ankle off last year unless you're pretty confident that he's going to be good this year. Correct?
I just feel like him and Baker had this awesome continuity. You saw it last year in the beginning of the season, like you said. And for him, this is pretty much a retirement deal for him. You know, he's going to get 2-3 years out of this. He possibly retire as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He's hurt all the time, though. His body's so beat up, man. This guy he's got so many like devastating injuries to his lower body. His shoulder was out before too. I love Chris Godwin. I love that this situation. Him and DJ Moore are my two favorite receivers in the league. And to see Chris Godwin get this deal makes me so happy. It was so sad seeing him get carted off the field last year with that devastating injury. This is such a good story-ending fairy tale ending to this.
Yep, moving on to now the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals, another team making a lot of defensive moves. They made a couple moves on offense. Kelvin Beachum, 1-year contract on a re-signing, and Evan Brown re-signed to a 2-year deal, so bringing 2 of their offensive linemen back there. The Rams, Jimmy Garoppolo, didn't see much of him last year. They didn't make restructure Matthew Stafford after it sounded like he was going to get moved. He is back in LA. Garoppolo will back him up once again. The big moves, the small move. Let's talk about the small move. The small move, Tutu Atwell. If there is ever a small move, Tutu Atwell is the small move. 1 year, $10 million deal. Again, I don't know how Tutu Atwell is getting more money than Najee Harris. Is absolutely blowing my mind, but he is. But the big deal, Davante Adams headed back to California kid, 2 years, $46 million, $26 million guaranteed. And now Stafford has Davante Adams to go with Puka. Word is out that if they cannot get a trade done here very, very soon on Cooper Kupp, he is probably going to be released. Where are we at on this Rams offense that looked pretty good at times last year, especially when everyone was healthy? Jorge, you give us our thoughts real quick.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to reference Drew Scott, who I believe put out a tweet earlier today or yesterday that you look at the second half of the season, Matthew Stafford had been pretty lights out for fantasy, being, I believe, a top 12 fantasy quarterback after people started coming back and they were healthy again. Now you start the season, everybody's healthy with 2 wide receivers that are durable and will be there week in and week out. Not unlike Cooper Kupp in recent years, who starts off the season well and then has like an ankle injury and then misses a bunch of time, but then comes back in the tail end of the season. I don't think you're going to get that issue with Davante Adams and Puka Nacua now. The question is, who's the third man? Who's the third man? Who's the third man that's going to come out and kind of help take some off of these?
Jordan Whittington.
He's got Whittington here. You know what? Everybody was talking about them maybe going Jackson Dart in the first round until the Stafford move happened. I think a sneaky move is they need a slot guy, like a pure slot guy. Luther Burden, Mizzou, baby. Luther Burden, I think, could absolutely be the move there. Obviously, I want him on the Steelers at 21. I don't know if they make a move at wide receiver after the move for Metcalf with all the other things they need. But I think Luther Burden could be sneaky good on that Rams team. A guy's a yak machine, can do a little bit of everything. You can manufacture stuff. He doesn't need a million targets. I kind of like that move for them. Plus, there is some, I tell you what, if they don't go Luther Burden, you know who's another guy I absolutely love? John, I love Ibuka, but say they don't want to go first round. I think Jalen
Noel.
from Iowa State. He absolutely tore up the combine. I like him a ton. He would be another great slot guy if they wanted to try to get him in the second. Originally, I thought he would be a third rounder, but man, I'm starting to really think there's no way he's getting a third with how good he was at the combine. Just running a 4.39 40. I mean, he had crazy production. He's 5'10, 187. So it's not like he's the tiniest guy in the world at a slot. I definitely think we could see the Rams going one of those moves in the draft.
What about a guy like Restrepo? Because he's like a just a tough slot receiver too,
he's another guy I think could be a nice spot. If say they can't get Noel in the second, maybe Restrepo drops a third, they go there.
He just fits that
I do. I absolutely think they could have a set list of slot guys they like, and depending on who gets to them in what round, I could definitely see any of those guys fitting this team.
Right.
Aiden, did you have something you want to say about the Rams here?
I just want to say I'm like probably higher than I've ever been in recent memory of Davante Adams' fantasy value and outlook in 2025. If I can get a quote unquote value for Davante Adams in drafts next year leading up to the season because of the perceived presence of Puka Nacua, I'd happily take that discount.
Moving on to the 49ers here as we finish out the show. Patrick Taylor re-signing for a year. Luke Farrell, 3-year deal with $20 million, $11 million guaranteed. Again, a career backup. Tight end somehow getting good money blows my mind. He's pretty much irrelevant unless George Kittle gets hurt, so not much there as far as offensively. And to finish it up, me and John's boy lands a big deal. We've been talking about him for years. We love him. We've backed him the entire time. Sam Darnold, send us a signed jersey, please. Sam Darnold signing to the Seattle Seahawks, 3 years, $100.5 million deal, $55 million guaranteed, $37.5 million the first year. I think this is a good move for the Seahawks. Moving on from Geno and going to Darnold, I actually personally like it because I feel like this new coaching staff's ready to let's turn the page. Let's kind of build this team in our own image as opposed to what Pete Carroll had done here. John, I'm going to let you start first because I know you're a Darnold lover like me. Give me your thoughts before I go into Jorge and Aiden, which I have no idea what they're going to say about Darnold, but I know you love Darnold and I want to hear the good first.
They just can't. I mean, JSN's absolutely fantastic, but Jake Bobo's your next best weapon on this team. I'm not really sure what is going to happen here. I love Noah Fant, and you know that too. No, he's on Noah Fant, someone I have on every team, just waiting for him to produce too. But they're going to have to get some help for A, the receiving core, B, the offense as a whole, and C, for Sam Darnold, to have somebody to throw to, because you're setting up for failure here. And Sam Darnold, you saw the way that he unfolded with the Vikings offense. All the good coordinator, good head coach, good offensive line, good receivers, good running backs. Everything was. This is not the same team. This is like putting him back on the Jets almost. It kind of scares me a little bit.
He's going to see ghosts.
No, he's not. Stop saying that.
Aiden, what do you think about Sam Darnold before I throw in my 2 cents before we close out the show here?
One, I want to pose this to you guys. Wouldn't Matthew Golden on the Seahawks just be phenomenal fit?
Here's what I was thinking. I think Golden is a good spot. Here's another guy I think. If Ted McMillan's actually going to fall, now, will he actually fall, or is it a bunch of crazy talk? Because he was a clear-cut top 10 guy. Now, all of a sudden, I'm seeing people say he maybe gets the 22 of the Chargers. I think that's insanity. Wow. If he gets up into the 20s, I don't think there's any way. If he gets in the 20s, are the Seahawks not running over people to get up there to get Tet to replace DK Metcalf? I would be punching people in the face and running up there to get Tet if he somehow fell. But I don't think he does, though. I'll preface that. I don't think Ted falls. I think this is crazy talk. I think people are just talking smoke. I think Golden might be the guy for them. I think that's a good call, Aiden.
Go ahead, Aiden.
You asked me about Sam Darnold. I know you, JT, and you, John, both of you love him, but I'm fearful fantasy-wise. This is great for JSN. JSN is going to be a target hog, target monster, whatever. But I fearful that Darnold was more of a product of KOC, Kevin O'Connell's system, because he's a QB whisperer than anything else. And I feel like away from that, we've already saw it with the Jets. maybe we see it with the Seahawks away from that. Darnold won't be nearly as good. I think it was more of KOC's system than anything else.
He's a good
Go ahead,
quarterback.
John.
The system, the team, the everything. Like I said, the system, the team, the everything around him just kind of panned out. They're going to need to add like a Trey Harris or a Jaden Higgins or something like that to get him like a downfield big threat.
I think Trey Harris would be an awesome guy. I love Trey Harris if they go first. I don't think he gets to him in the second. I love Trey Harris. I think early second round, but I could see them taking him in the first. I think that's a good move. Here's my final thoughts on Sam Darnold. I like Sam Darnold a lot. Oh, still only 27 years old, people. Still only 27 years old. Guy is still young. I think he's going to be solid for the Seahawks. I don't think he's going to be spectacular fantasy-wise. I think he's going to be a nice QB2, QB3 for fantasy. He's going to be good for you, okay for you to good. He's not going to be great. He's not going to win you weeks. He's not going to blow up and have monster weeks. I just don't see that happen. But I think Sam Darnold could be a solid QB. I really, really do. I think he can be a solid QB going forward, depending on what the offensive coordinator does and what Seattle puts around him. Obviously, I think JSN is going to, like you guys said, target a hog this year. They're going to need to put a couple more people around him. But I do still think this team was 10-7 last year. I think this Seattle team is still in the mix. I think the Rams are the best team in that division. Right now, the Niners are a little bit of a disaster. What's happening with them? So, I mean, they were the clear-cut best team in that division, and now who knows what's happening to them. Arizona's a little bit of a mess still. I think that division's wide open. So it's not a bad time, I think, necessarily for Seattle to kind of go with a little bit of a reset here. I wouldn't be surprised if they take multiple wide receivers, especially after they got the Steelers' second-round pick. I think I could see them absolutely going Matthew Golden in the first round and then taking someone like a Trey Harris or another guy, taking another guy in the second round. I could see them double tap back-to-back wide receivers in this. Any final thoughts for anybody before we get out of here? We've already pushed the hockey show back enough here. Let's finish it up and we'll get on to the Around the Ice.
JT, just something that does happen to Sam Darnold. You know who his backup is. Sam Howell, baby. Our boy
Sam Howell. I love Sam Howell. I love Sam Howell. I was kind of hoping that they were moving Geno because they love Sam Howell so much that they were like, let's go Sam Howell. I kind of thought the same thing. So I tell you what, anywhere I have Sam Darnold at already in leagues, I am going to be sending out offers for Sam Howell for backup.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for us here on the Stew with JT Brew on Fantasy in Frames. If you get a chance, go in, like, subscribe, follow, give us a comment, tell us we're awesome. If not, just say, hey, you guys are okay. We'll take it. Follow us because all week we got a million shows coming, Jorge, right? We've got a ton of stuff. What do we got on tap this week before we get out of here?
Well, for our IDP show here, Shoot the Gap, we have 3 shows where we're talking about rookie prospect linebackers on Tuesday, defensive linemen on Wednesday, defensive back on Thursday. We got our Dynasty 365 show where we're talking about the rookie running back class from a fantasy perspective. Just a lot of podcasts coming up this week. We may have a few more announcements. Aiden has been dropping articles like crazy over at fantasyframes.com. His most recent one talking about the fallout of the DK Metcalf trade is definitely something you have to tune in, guys and gals. But, and then we just got, next week is going to be huge because we have a majority of our podcasts coming back that you normally hear in season, and we just can't wait to start pumping out content and making the masses happy, giving the people what they want.
Absolutely. Best time of the year. More free agent signings to come. We'll keep you up to date on the show. If we get a bunch more stuff happening in the next few days, possibly jump back on here on another Stew with JT Brew and bring you some more free agent action the rest of the week on top of all the other things we're doing at Fantasy and Frames. But that's going to do it for us. If you're a hockey fan, if you're not a hockey fan, stick around, give us a shout. Jump on. We're going to be talking NHL Around the Ice here on Fantasy and Frames here in about 5 minutes. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have a good night. We'll check you next time.
You up on trades and wire moves, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sifting through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the steward JT Brew.